where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1. The Friends Who Knew Too Much. They smiled like brothers, but they were waiting for the exact moment to ruin his life. Some friends don't betray you once, they slowly erase you. I never believed the phrase, fake friends are more dangerous than enemies. That belief almost killed me. My name is Ethan Miller, and this is not a story meant to scare you with monsters, ghosts, or demons. This is worse. This is about people you trust, people you laugh with, people who know your secrets, and how they can destroy you from the inside while calling themselves your friends. The perfect friend group. It all started in Chicago, winter of 2018. I was 22, fresh out of college, living in a shared apartment near downtown. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hopeful. I had a decent job at a digital marketing firm, dreams of starting my own business, and what I believed was a solid group of friends. There were 4 of us. Ryan, the leader type, charming, confident, always talking about success. Mark, quiet, sarcastic, good with tech, rarely spoke about his personal life. Jason, the joker, always laughing, always supportive, or so it seemed. And me, the listener, the planner, the guy who believed loyalty mattered. We met during our first year of college. Late-night study sessions turned into parties. Parties turned into road trips. And before we knew it, we were inseparable. Or at least, that's what I thought. The first small red flag. Looking back, the signs were there. But fake friends don't attack you loudly. They whisper. Ryan used to make jokes about my failures. Relax, man, I'm just kidding. Jason would laugh a little too hard when I messed up. Mark always knew things he shouldn't have known. Still, I ignored it. Because when you're surrounded by people, loneliness feels impossible until it suddenly isn't. The secret I never should have shared. One night, after a few drinks, everything changed. We were sitting in our apartment living room. Snow tapped softly against the windows. The room smelled of cheap beer and pizza. Ryan leaned back and said, Ethan, you're the smartest one here. Why don't you start something of your own? I laughed. I've thought about it, but I don't trust people easily. Jason leaned forward. You trust us, right? That question should have scared me. Instead, it made me feel safe. So I told them. I told them about the investment money my uncle had secretly given me. I told them about my startup idea, an online platform I'd been planning for over a year. I told them things I hadn't even told my parents. The room went quiet. Ryan smiled slowly. That's huge, man. I didn't notice how Mark avoided eye contact. I didn't notice how Jason stopped joking. That night, I handed them the blueprint of my future. When friends start watching you. From that moment, things shifted. Ryan started asking questions. Too many. How much money exactly? Who else knows? When are you launching? Jason suddenly wanted to help with everything. Mark began working late on his laptop, always locking his screen when I walked by. I felt uncomfortable, but I told myself I was paranoid. That's how fake friends win. The night everything disappeared, 3 months later, my life collapsed in one night. I came home late from work. The apartment lights were off. Ryan's shoes were gone. Jason's jacket missing. Mark's room locked. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was my laptop. It was open. Files were missing. My business plan, gone. My financial spreadsheets, gone. Emails deleted. Cloud access changed. My chest tightened. I checked my phone. No messages, no calls, just silence. Then my email notification appeared. Welcome to Nexacore Digital. Founder account activated. I stared at the screen. Nexacore Digital was the name of my idea, but I wasn't the founder. The betrayal reveals itself. The next morning, I found out the truth. Ryan had registered the company under his name. Mark had copied my entire system. Jason had contacted investors using my connections. They didn't just steal my idea, they erased me from it. When I confronted Ryan, he didn't deny it. He smiled. "You should have protected yourself better." Those words haunt me to this day. When fake friends turn into predators, I lost everything within weeks. My job, gone. My savings, drained fighting legal battles. My reputation, destroyed by lies they spread. They told people I was unstable, that I was greedy, that I tried to steal their idea. Friends stopped calling. Family started doubting. And that's when the nightmares began. Not dreams, nightmares. I'd wake up hearing footsteps in the hallway, whispers calling my name, my phone lighting up with messages that vanished when I opened them. Fake friends don't leave when they're done. They watch. The warning I ignored. One night, an unknown number texted me. "They're not finished with you." I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. The horror begins. 2 days later, I saw my own face on social media, tied to crimes I never committed. Fake screenshots, fake messages, fake evidence. But the damage was real. And that's when I realized something terrifying. They didn't just want success. They wanted to destroy me completely. Story 2. When betrayal starts watching you. They didn't just steal his future. They turned his own mind into a prison. When fake friends finish using you, they don't walk away. They hunt. The first time I realized something was seriously wrong, I was afraid of my own phone. Every vibration made my heart jump. Every notification felt like another nail in the coffin of my life. My name, Ethan Miller, had become poison. And the worst part? The people destroying me knew exactly how my mind worked, because once, they were my friends. A life that no longer felt real. I stopped going outside, not because I was lazy, not because I was depressed, because people were watching me. At least that's what it felt like. Neighbors I had greeted for years suddenly avoided eye contact. Uber drivers whispered on phone calls after dropping me off. Cashiers paused too long while scanning my card. Maybe it was paranoia, or maybe it wasn't. Everywhere I went, I could feel judgment crawling over my skin. The lies Ryan and the others had spread were working. The internet never forgets. I searched my name online. Worst mistake of my life. Articles, threads, videos. Former employee accused of fraud. Unstable man threatens startup founders. The dark side of Nexacore's former partner. Former partner. I was never listed as a partner. They had rewritten history. And the comments. God, the comments. Lock him up. He looks crazy. Another greedy loser pretending to be a victim. I slammed my laptop shut and vomited into the sink. That's when I realized something terrifying. They didn't just steal my idea. They stole my identity. The first direct message. It happened at 2:13 a.m. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Ryan, you should stop fighting. It's not good for your mental health." My blood went cold. I hadn't given him my new number. I typed back. "Me. How did you get this number?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then a new message. "Ryan, you always overthink, Ethan. That's your weakness." My hands shook. He knew. He knew I doubted myself. He knew anxiety followed me like a shadow, and he was using it. Gaslighting, the invisible weapon. Over the next week, messages came from different numbers, sometimes supportive, sometimes threatening, sometimes confusing. "We're worried about you. Why are you lying to people? You need help. You did this to yourself. I couldn't prove it was them. That was the point. Fake friends don't attack directly. They make you question your own reality. I started recording calls, saving screenshots, documenting everything. But every time I showed someone, they looked at me with concern, not belief. When sleep becomes dangerous, the nightmares returned, but they were different now. I dreamed I was back in our old apartment. Ryan sat at the table, smiling. Mark typed silently on his laptop. Jason stood behind me. I tried to scream. No sound came out. Jason leaned close to my ear and whispered, "You told us everything." I woke up choking for air. My room was dark, too dark. I reached for the lamp. It didn't turn on. Then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, careful, inside my apartment. The break-in that left nothing behind. I didn't move. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door. Then silence. Minutes passed. Hours. Eventually, I fell asleep from exhaustion. In the morning, the door was locked. Windows untouched. Nothing stolen. Except one thing. My notebook. The one where I had written everything. Names, dates, evidence. Gone. That's when fear turned into certainty. They had been inside. The police didn't believe me. I reported it. The officer listened politely, then asked, "Do you have proof someone entered?" "No," I said. "Any signs of forced entry?" "No." "Any witnesses?" "No." He closed his notebook. "Sir, with your online history, maybe it's best you speak to a professional." A professional? That's how they win. Make you look unstable. Make authority doubt you. Make the truth sound insane. Jason breaks silence. 3 days later, Jason emailed me. Subject: "Let's end this." I hesitated, then opened it. "Ethan, you need to stop. Ryan is worried you'll hurt yourself. Mark thinks you've lost perspective. We didn't want things to go this far." "Didn't want?" I replied immediately. "You stole my life." His response came fast. "No, you handed it to us." That line broke something inside me, because part of me knew he was right. The file I wasn't supposed to see. That night I received an anonymous email. No subject, just an attachment. I almost deleted it. Almost. Inside was a video, recorded months ago. Our apartment living room. Ryan speaking. "Ethan trusts too easily. Once we launch, we cut him out. If he fights back, we make him look crazy." Mark nodded. Jason laughed. I dropped my phone. My hands were numb. They had planned everything. From day one. Realization. This was never about business. That's when the truth finally hit me. This wasn't just greed, it was control. Ryan hated that I was smarter. Mark envied my creativity. Jason feared being irrelevant. They didn't want success alone. They wanted to break me. But they made one mistake. They underestimated something. Me. They thought I'd disappear. They thought I'd collapse. But fear can turn into focus. And I decided, if fake friends wanted war, I would make sure the truth burned everything down. Story 3. The moment I stopped being a victim, they broke him until he stopped being afraid. And when fear dies, monsters are born. There is a moment in every horror story when the victim changes, not because they become stronger overnight, not because they suddenly turn fearless, but because they realize something far more dangerous. They have nothing left to lose. That moment came for me at 3:47 a.m., sitting alone on my apartment floor, staring at the video that proved my friends planned my destruction from the very beginning. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I smiled, and that scared me more than anything else. Fear evolves into something else. Fear keeps you alive, but too much fear rots you from the inside. For weeks I had been running, hiding from notifications, hiding from people, hiding from my own thoughts. That night I stopped running. I replayed the video again. Ryan's calm voice, Mark's silence, Jason's laughter. They weren't afraid in that video. They were confident, certain. They believed the future belonged to them. That confidence would be their weakness. I became my own ghost. The first rule of survival? Disappear. I deleted my social media accounts, changed my phone number, stopped using my real name online. To the world, Ethan Miller broke down and vanished. To Ryan and the others, I became quiet, and silence makes predators nervous. Studying the monsters. I didn't rush into revenge. That's what they expected. Instead, I studied them. Ryan posted motivational videos daily. Fake confidence hiding insecurity. Mark left digital trails everywhere. Arrogance disguised as intelligence. Jason drank too much and talked too freely. Always had. They thought they were untouchable. That was mistake number one. The first crack, I created a burner account. No name, no photo, no emotion. I sent one email to an investor Ryan trusted. Simple. You should ask Nexicor who really designed their system. No accusations, no threats, just curiosity. Within days, Ryan's online behavior changed. Fewer posts, late-night rants, deleted comments. Paranoia had entered the room. Jason started to slip. Jason was always the weakest link. He needed approval, so I gave him doubt instead. From another anonymous account, I sent him screenshots. Not the full video, just fragments. Enough to scare him. Enough to make him wonder, who else knows? 2 nights later, Jason drunk texted me from his real number. Is this you? I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. You should be more careful who you trust. That message destroyed him. The first confession. 3 days later, Jason called. I recorded everything. His voice shook. Ethan, man, things got out of hand. Out of hand, he cried. He blamed Ryan. He blamed pressure. He blamed fear. Not once did he blame himself. Fake friends never do. But he said one thing that mattered. Ryan has backups. He planned for everything. Everything except betrayal from inside. I used the truth like a weapon. I didn't expose them publicly. Not yet. I did something worse. I let them turn on each other. Anonymous emails began circulating. Different versions of the same truth sent to different people. Ryan believed Mark was leaking information. Mark believed Jason was sabotaging him. Jason believed Ryan would sacrifice him first. And they were all right. When the hunters became the hunted, Nexicor started bleeding. Investors pulled back. Internal arguments leaked. Deadlines were missed. Online rumors spread. The same way they once spread lies about me. Ryan posted a video denying accusations. His hands were shaking. I recognized that look. It was the same fear they gave me. They came looking for me. One night I heard knocking, hard, angry. I didn't answer. Ryan's voice came through the door. Ethan, I know you're in there. My blood froze. He sounded desperate, not powerful. Desperate people are dangerous. I stayed silent. After 10 minutes, he left, but he didn't come alone. Jason was with him. They were hunting the ghost they created, the final piece of evidence. The next day, Mark made his mistake. He accessed an old cloud folder using his personal IP. I had left it there on purpose. Inside was the full video. He downloaded it. That was all I needed. Proof, timeline, intent. The truth was finally complete. I had a choice. Expose everything publicly, destroy them instantly, or make them feel what I felt. Isolation, fear, helplessness. I chose justice over cruelty, because monsters are born when victims forget why they started fighting. The day the truth came out, I sent everything to journalists, to investors, to lawyers, raw, unedited, impossible to deny. Within hours, Nexicor's website went offline. Ryan disappeared from social media. Mark deleted all accounts. Jason was hospitalized for stress-related collapse. Funny word, collapse. But this is a horror story, so it doesn't end cleanly. A week later, I received one last message. Unknown number. You think you won? I stared at the screen. My reflection looked different now. Calmer, colder. I typed back, I survived. No reply came, but I know something you should understand. Fake friends don't always lose. Sometimes they just wait. Story 4. One of them never made it out. The truth came out, but the nightmare didn't end because one of my fake friends vanished and everyone blamed me. You think exposure brings peace. You think once the truth is public, the fear fades, the damage stops, and life slowly returns to normal. That's a lie. Sometimes revealing the truth is what unlocks the final horror. After the fall, Nexicor collapsed faster than anyone expected. News articles shifted tone overnight. The same platforms that once called me unstable now used words like whistleblower, wronged founder, victim of coordinated betrayal. Apologies came too late. Emails, messages, voicemails from people who had turned their backs on me. But something felt off. I wasn't relieved. I was uneasy because Ryan, Mark, and Jason weren't fighting anymore. They were silent. The silence that screamed. Ryan disappeared completely. No posts, no statements, no legal response. Mark's lawyer released one carefully written denial, and then nothing. Jason vanished. Not online, not socially, physically. The call from the police. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I was making coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Miller, this is Detective Harris. My stomach dropped. We have a few questions regarding Jason Keller. I didn't respond. We understand you and Mr. Keller had a complicated history. Complicated? That word again. I told him the truth, everything. The betrayal, the messages, the calls, the breakdown. The detective listened quietly, then asked the question that changed everything. When was the last time you saw him? I swallowed. Months ago. There was a pause. Because he hasn't been seen in 11 days. When the past becomes a weapon, rumors spread quickly, too quickly. Online forums started connecting dots that didn't exist. Ethan was threatening him. Jason sounded scared. Ethan disappeared first. They called it motive. They called it escalation. They didn't call it coincidence. And suddenly I was no longer just a victim. I was a person of interest. The apartment visit. They came that evening. 2 detectives, polite, calm, dangerous. They looked around my apartment, checked my laptop, scrolled through my phone, asked about burner accounts. I told them everything. I had learned not to hide anymore. When they left, one of them stopped at the door and said, "Sometimes people push others too far without realizing it." That sentence followed me into my dreams. The message from Ryan. At 1:09 a.m., my phone lit up. Ryan, same number. "You ruined everything." I stared at the screen. Then another message. Jason couldn't handle it. My fingers went cold. I typed, "What did you do?" 3 dots appeared, then vanished. No reply. The video that wasn't meant for me. The next day an email arrived, encrypted, anonymous. Inside was a video clip. Grainy, shaky. Jason sat in a dark room, eyes red, voice trembling. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he said. "I was scared. Ryan said it would be fine. Ryan, then the video cut. No timestamp, no location, just silence. Guilt is a different kind of horror. I hated Jason, but watching that video, I felt something worse than anger. Responsibility. If I hadn't pushed, if I hadn't exposed, if I had walked away, would he still be alive? That question eats you from the inside. The discovery. 3 days later, the news broke. Jason's car was found near an abandoned industrial area outside the city. No body, no blood, just his phone in the glove compartment, unlocked. The last message on the screen? A draft, unsent. I should have told Ethan the truth sooner. Ryan's final move. Ryan contacted me one last time, this time a call. I answered. You happy now? He asked. His voice sounded hollow. You turned us into monsters, I replied calmly. You were monsters long before me. He laughed, not amused, broken. You think this ends with exposure? With justice? He paused, then said, You'll always wonder what happened to him. The call ended. The thing nobody talks about. Here's the part no one tells you about revenge stories. Even when you win, you lose something. Sleep never came easily again. Every unknown number felt dangerous. Every shadow felt like someone watching. Fake friends don't just destroy your past. They poison your future. The final realization. Months later, the case went cold. No charges, no answers. Ryan was last seen leaving the country. Mark settled quietly and changed his name. Jason, still missing. And me? I learned a truth darker than any horror story. Sometimes, the scariest part isn't betrayal, it's surviving it. Story 5. The friend who never really left. Everyone wanted closure. What they got instead was the truth that never lets you sleep again. This is the part of the story people beg me not to tell, because once you hear it, you'll start looking at your own friends differently, and that's a door you can never close again. Life after a cold case. The investigation into Jason's disappearance officially went cold after 6 months. No body, no crime scene, no suspect, just a file filled with questions nobody wanted to answer. The media moved on. The internet found new villains. My name slowly stopped trending, but peace never came, because silence is loud when you're the only one listening. The letter that arrived too late. It came almost a year later. No return address, no stamp, just my name written in handwriting I recognized instantly. Jason's. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single page. Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I finally did the one thing I was always too afraid to do. Tell the truth. My heart dropped. Jason's confession. The letter wasn't long, but every sentence felt heavy. Ryan didn't just plan the business betrayal. He planned everything that came after. The lies, the gaslighting, the breakdown. Even me. I sat down. Ryan said you were dangerous, that exposing the truth would ruin us all. He said if anything happened to me, the blame would fall on you. My stomach twisted. I didn't disappear because I was scared of you. I disappeared because I was scared of him. The night Jason ran, Jason explained what really happened that night. Ryan had called him after the exposure. Panicked, furious, desperate. He told Jason they needed a final move. Something dramatic, something permanent. Ryan wanted Jason to fake his death, to vanish, to become the final weapon against me. He said the world already thinks you're unstable. All we had to do was push it one step further. Jason wrote that he agreed at first, not because he wanted to hurt me, but because he had spent his entire life being afraid of disappointing people. The moment everything broke, according to the letter, the plan was simple. Jason would disappear for a few weeks, let suspicion grow, let the pressure crush me, then reappear quietly later. But something changed. That night, when I was alone in that warehouse, I realized something. Jason wrote, "Ryan wasn't afraid of you. He was afraid of being exposed for who he really was." And that's when Jason made a different choice. Why Jason never came back? Jason didn't fake his death. He faked his existence. He destroyed his phone, dumped his car, withdrew cash slowly over months, and disappeared into a place where no one knew his name. If I came back, Ryan would control the story again, and you would never be free. So Jason vanished, not as revenge, but as confession. The line that still haunts me. Near the end of the letter, Jason wrote one sentence I still think about every night. Ryan was the monster, but monsters need witnesses who stay silent. I had been their silence once. So had Jason. The final warning, the last paragraph was short. I don't expect forgiveness. I just couldn't let you believe you destroyed me. You didn't. But be careful, Ethan. My breath caught. Ryan doesn't lose. He waits. What happened to Ryan? 2 months after the letter arrived, I saw his face again. A blurred security photo attached to a news article. A man detained overseas for fraud under a different name. Different beard, different passport, same eyes. Ryan had been running since the beginning. Jason wasn't the only one who disappeared. The difference? Jason disappeared to stop the nightmare. Ryan disappeared to survive it. The truth no one talks about. People love stories where justice feels clean. This wasn't one of them. Ryan was never convicted for what he did to me. Jason never officially came back from the dead. Mark vanished into corporate anonymity. And I was left with something far heavier than revenge. Understanding. What fake friends really do. Fake friends don't always scream or threaten. Sometimes they learn your weaknesses, borrow your dreams, wear your trust like a mask. And when they're done, they don't just walk away. They rewrite you. The last message. Last month I received one final email. No name, no subject, just one sentence. You were never crazy. I don't know if it was Jason. I don't know if it was guilt. But I do know this. Fake friends leave scars you can't see. And those scars change how you love, how you trust, how you survive. Final realization, ending line. Enemies show you who they are. Fake friends wait until you show them who you are. Then they use it against you. Welcome to Creepytalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1. The Silence Behind the Kitchen Door. She worked in the house for 6 months. On the 7th month, the house realized she was never alive. People say every house has a sound. Floorboards creaking, pipes breathing, walls settling. But the house on Willow Crescent had silence. Not peaceful silence. The kind that presses against your ears, as if something is listening. When Mr. and Mrs. Carter hired the housemaid, she arrived on a rainy Monday morning. No umbrella, no luggage, just a small cloth bag and eyes that never blinked too often. Her name was Eliza. She spoke softly, almost whispering, as if afraid of waking something up. Mrs. Carter noticed it immediately, but dismissed it. Good maids were hard to find, and Eliza came recommended through an old agency record, handwritten, yellowed, almost forgotten. The first strange thing happened on her 3rd day. Mrs. Carter woke up at 3:12 a.m. to the sound of dishes clinking in the kitchen. She assumed Eliza was cleaning late again. The girl worked odd hours, never complained, never asked for days off. But when Mrs. Carter reached the kitchen, the lights were off. The dishes were stacked neatly, bone dry, cold, and Eliza was standing in the corner, facing the wall. Mrs. Carter laughed nervously and asked, "Eliza, What are you doing? Slowly, Eliza turned her head. Not her body, just her head. I heard footsteps, she said. Mrs. Carter frowned. From where? From inside the walls. Mrs. Carter didn't sleep after that. Weeks passed and the Carters began noticing things that felt wrong. Eliza never ate with them. She claimed she ate earlier or later or not at all. The refrigerator remained untouched at night. No leftovers went missing. No plates were used. Yet every morning the kitchen smelled of freshly cooked food. Mr. Carter once joked, maybe she survives on air. Eliza didn't smile. She simply said, I don't need much. Another thing, no one ever heard her footsteps, not on the stairs, not in the hallway. She appeared silently, suddenly, like she had always been standing there. And then there were the mirrors. Every mirror in the house had been cleaned perfectly, except one, the small mirror near the kitchen door. Eliza never touched it. Mrs. Carter asked her once why. Eliza's answer was quiet but sharp. Some reflections don't belong to the living. The first real incident happened when the Carters hosted a dinner party. Friends filled the house with laughter, music, wine. For the first time, the silence was broken. Eliza served everyone calmly, efficiently. Guests complimented her politeness, but mentioned something unsettling. She never made eye contact. At exactly 9:47 p.m., the power went out. Darkness swallowed the house. Someone screamed. When the lights returned, one of the guests, Mrs. Holloway, was sitting on the floor, shaking uncontrollably. She stood behind me, she cried. The maid. She whispered my dead sister's name. Everyone laughed it off. Nerves, alcohol, imagination. Eliza was nowhere to be seen. Later that night, Mrs. Carter found her standing outside the kitchen door, staring at the small mirror. What did you whisper to Mrs. Holloway? She demanded. Eliza replied, she asked who followed her home. Mrs. Carter felt her stomach drop. Things escalated quickly after that. The Carter's son, Daniel, age 9, started talking in his sleep. He whispered about a woman who sat at the foot of his bed. Eliza keeps the other ones away, he murmured one night. What other ones? Mrs. Carter asked, terrified. The ones who knock from inside the closet. Mrs. Carter rushed to Eliza the next morning. Have you been in my son's room at night? Eliza nodded. Yes, Mrs. Carter snapped. You are not allowed. They try to take him, Eliza interrupted calmly. Children are easier. That was the first time Mr. Carter demanded they fire her. But when they tried, Eliza simply said, I can't leave yet. That night, the walls started knocking. Not pipes, not wood, knuckles from the inside. At 2:03 a.m., the kitchen door slammed shut on its own. Mrs. Carter ran downstairs and found Eliza standing barefoot on the cold tiles, blood dripping from her nose. They're angry, Eliza said. What are they? Mr. Carter shouted. Eliza looked at them both. Former staff. The temperature dropped suddenly. Frost formed on the kitchen window. The knocking grew louder, rhythmic, desperate. Eliza stepped toward the small mirror and finally touched it. The reflection moved before she did. The mirror cracked. Screams erupted from the walls. And then, silence. The next morning, Eliza was gone. No note, no belongings. The cloth bag remained, empty. The house felt lighter, warmer, relieved. Until Mrs. Carter decided to research the agency record. She found a death certificate dated 1979. Cause of death, severe head trauma. Occupation, housemaid. Location, Willow Crescent. Attached was a photograph. Eliza, same face, same eyes. Mrs. Carter dropped the file. Behind her, the kitchen door slowly creaked open, and for the first time since Eliza left, footsteps were heard. Story 2. She was never alone in the house. The maid didn't return, but something else learned her job very well. After Eliza disappeared, the Carters tried to convince themselves that everything would go back to normal. It didn't. The house stopped knocking, yes, but it started watching. Mrs. Carter noticed it first. That feeling you get when you turn off a light and walk upstairs, certain someone is behind you. She felt it every night. Every corner of the house felt occupied, as if invisible furniture had been moved to make space for something unseen. Daniel stopped talking about Eliza. That scared her more than anything. Children don't forget protectors easily. The second maid arrived 2 weeks later. Her name was Martha, middle-aged, practical, loud in a comforting way. She laughed often and spoke bluntly. The house seemed to resist her presence. Doors stuck, drawers jammed. The small mirror near the kitchen door cracked further on its own. Spiderweb fractures spreading overnight. On Martha's first day, she asked, "Why does this place feel cold even when the heater's on?" Mrs. Carter lied. Old pipes. That night, Martha screamed. They found her in the laundry room staring at the washing machine, pale and trembling. "It called me," she whispered. "What called you?" Mr. Carter asked. "The machine," she said. "It said she doesn't like replacements." Martha quit the next morning. Things worsened rapidly after that. Plates fell from shelves with no explanation. Doors slammed only when Daniel walked past them. And the kitchen, always the kitchen, smelled of iron and burned oil after midnight. Mrs. Carter began dreaming of Eliza. Not violent dreams, routine ones. Eliza folding laundry, Eliza wiping the counter, Eliza standing behind Mrs. Carter in the mirror, but never reflected. In every dream, Eliza whispered the same sentence. "They don't stay quiet forever." One night, Mrs. Carter woke up choking, hands around her throat, invisible, freezing hands. She struggled, gasping, until suddenly the pressure vanished. The bedroom door was open. On the wall, written in something dark and sticky, were 3 words. She kept order. Mr. Carter wanted to leave the house immediately, but the realtor refused to list it. "Too many complaints," he said. "Neighbors hear screaming. No one lives there long." Mrs. Carter asked, "Who lived here before us?" The realtor hesitated. "Staff housing," he admitted. "Rotating help. High turnover." "How high?" "None stayed longer than a year." Mrs. Carter felt sick. Daniel started sleepwalking. Every night at exactly 3:12 a.m., the same time Mrs. Carter first heard Eliza in the kitchen. He walked downstairs silently and stood in front of the small mirror. Mrs. Carter followed him one night and watched in horror as Daniel whispered, "She says you're messy." Mrs. Carter grabbed him and shook him awake. "Who says that?" Daniel blinked, confused. "The maid," he said. "The one with the broken neck." Mrs. Carter screamed. Desperate, the Carters called a paranormal investigator. His name was Edwin Hale. Calm, skeptical, methodical. He set up cameras, audio recorders, temperature sensors. "This house isn't haunted," he said confidently. "It's occupied." That sentence made Mrs. Carter's blood run cold. "What's the difference?" she asked. "A haunting is a memory," Edwin replied. "An occupation is active." That night, every sensor malfunctioned. Cameras recorded hours of empty rooms, except one. The kitchen camera showed Eliza, standing perfectly still, facing the mirror. At 3:12 a.m., she turned and smiled. Edwin watched the footage in silence. "She was a regulator," he said finally. "A what?" "Some spirits don't haunt," he explained. "They maintain. Houses like this attract things. She kept them contained." Mr. Carter shouted, "Contained from what?" Edwin didn't answer immediately. Then the knocking started again. Not from the walls this time, from the floor. From below the house, the basement door, always locked, creaked open. A smell poured out. Rot. Mold. Something ancient. Edwin went down first. The basement wasn't empty. It was lined with names carved into the concrete. Hundreds of them. Dates, occupations, all staff, all ending with the same word. Replaced. Edwin turned pale. They didn't fire her, he whispered. They buried her. Mrs. Carter's knees buckled. Who? The house, Edwin said. Or what's bound to it? The temperature dropped violently. Lights exploded. The knocking turned into screaming. From the basement walls, shapes pressed outward. Faces, hands, mouths opening and closing in agony. They were careless, Edwin shouted. She cleaned their mess. When she died, nothing stopped them. The mirror upstairs shattered completely. A voice echoed through the house. Calm, familiar. You let it get dirty. Eliza stood at the top of the basement stairs. Her neck hung at an unnatural angle. Her eyes were empty. You replaced me, she said softly. Mrs. Carter fell to her knees. I'm sorry, she sobbed. Please. Eliza tilted her head. I wasn't finished. The house screamed. Walls cracked. The floor split open. Darkness surged upward like a tide. Edwin grabbed Daniel and shoved him toward the door. Run! As they escaped, Mrs. Carter looked back. Eliza was smiling again, calm, at peace, as the house collapsed inward, swallowing itself whole. The Carters survived. The house was condemned. Official cause, structural failure. No bodies were recovered. Years later, Mrs. Carter still cleans obsessively. Every surface, every corner. Because sometimes when she leaves a room messy, she hears soft footsteps behind her and a whisper. I kept order once. Now it's your turn. Story 3. The maid who never blinked. She never asked for payment, and once she entered the house, no one remembered hiring her. The house stood alone at the edge of the town, where streetlights stopped working and phone signals quietly died. It had been vacant for 7 years. When the Henderson family moved in, the neighbors watched from behind their curtains, not with curiosity, but with relief. A lived-in house meant whatever was inside might finally stay quiet. Mrs. Henderson noticed the maid on the second morning. She was standing in the hallway, still, waiting. Slim build, pale skin, dark uniform that looked decades old. Her hands were folded neatly, fingers overlapping with unnatural precision. I'm sorry, Mrs. Henderson said, startled. Who are you? The maid bowed her head slightly. I take care of the house, she said. Her voice was flat, not cold, empty. Mrs. Henderson assumed her husband had hired her. These things happened during stressful moves. What's your name? She asked. The maid paused, then said, You may call me Anne. Anne worked flawlessly. Too flawlessly. Every surface shined unnaturally fast. Beds were made before anyone left them. Spills vanished before they finished dripping. But there was something wrong with her face. She never blinked. Not once. Mrs. Henderson tested it. She spoke loudly, clapped, slammed doors. Anne's eyes stayed open, unmoving, glassy, unbothered. Their daughter Lucy, age 6, noticed something else. She watches the corners, Lucy whispered one night. What corners? Mrs. Henderson asked. The ones where the dark folds, Lucy said. She tells it to behave. Anne never entered Lucy's room without permission, but Lucy woke up every morning to find her toys perfectly aligned, facing the same direction, toward the closet. One night Lucy asked, Anne, do you sleep? Anne tilted her head. I rest when the house rests, she replied. What about blinking? Anne smiled. I already saw everything, she said. The first incident happened on the 5th night. Mr. Henderson heard water running long after midnight. He went downstairs and found Anne in the kitchen, scrubbing the floor with bare hands. The tiles were red. "Anne," he shouted, "what are you doing?" She looked up slowly. "Something spilled," she said. Mr. Henderson looked around. There was no cut, no broken glass, only the smell. Iron, blood. But by morning the floor was spotless. Anne stood in the hallway again, waiting. Mrs. Henderson tried to find the employment records. There were none, no agency, no contract, no payment history. When she asked Anne directly, Anne answered calmly, "I was already here." That night, Mrs. Henderson dreamed of a woman kneeling on the same kitchen floor, scrubbing endlessly while shadows crawled down the walls toward her. The woman never blinked. The house changed with Anne's presence. Rooms felt smaller, hallways stretched longer, doors took longer to close, as if resisting, and the blinking stopped. First Lucy, then Mr. Henderson. They would stare for long moments, eyes dry, unresponsive. Anne would gently remind them, "Stillness keeps it calm." Mrs. Henderson started blinking excessively, terrified of forgetting how. On the 9th night, Lucy disappeared. She wasn't missing. She was stored. Mrs. Henderson found her standing inside the hallway closet, eyes open, arms at her sides. "Lucy!" she screamed. Lucy didn't respond. Anne stood behind them. "She was loud," Anne said. "The house doesn't like loud." Mrs. Henderson grabbed her daughter. "You don't get to decide that." Anne stepped closer. Her eyes widened impossibly. "I do," she said. "That's why I was kept." The truth surfaced violently. At 3:33 a.m., the walls began breathing, literally expanding and contracting. From inside the plaster, shapes pushed outward, eyes forming, blinking desperately. Anne moved calmly through the chaos, touching walls, whispering commands. "Back, quiet, obey." The eyes retreated. Mr. Henderson collapsed. "What is she?" he screamed. Anne turned to him. "I'm what stopped it from looking back." Mrs. Henderson remembered something then. The neighbors, their relief, the way no one asked questions. She confronted Anne. "What happened to the last family?" Anne was silent for a long time. Then she said, "They stopped watching." The lights cut out. In the darkness, blinking sounds filled the house. Wet, rapid, frantic. Something moved. Fast. Too fast. Anne stood perfectly still. "Do not look away," she commanded. Mrs. Henderson's eyes burned. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't blink. Because when Mr. Henderson blinked, he vanished. No scream, no sound, just gone. Anne sighed. "One at a time," she murmured. "That's how it learns." Mrs. Henderson grabbed Lucy and ran. Anne didn't stop her. She simply said, "You won't manage long." And she was right. Outside the house, the world felt wrong, empty, flat. Lucy blinked and screamed. Behind them, the house groaned in satisfaction. Anne watched from the doorway, waiting. The Hendersons were found days later on the highway, catatonic, eyes red, unblinking. Lucy never spoke again. The house gained a new family 6 months later. And on the second morning, they noticed the maid standing in the hallway, still waiting. Story 4, The Laundry That Never Dried. The clothes were warm. No one in the house remembered wearing them. The washing machine started on its own at 2:14 a.m. That was the first sign something was wrong. Mrs. Wallace woke to the low rhythmic thumping echoing through the house like a heartbeat. Her husband slept beside her, unmoving. The sound wasn't loud, but it was persistent, patient, as if it knew someone would eventually listen. She followed the noise downstairs. The laundry room light was on. Inside, the machine churned slowly, filled with clothes she didn't recognize. Small shirts, delicate fabric, child-sized socks, still warm, still wet. Mrs. Wallace stood frozen. Her daughter had moved out 5 years ago. They hired the maid 2 weeks earlier. Her name was Ruth. She was older than the others, late 50s, maybe early 60s, with gray hair always tied back and eyes permanently lowered. She spoke very little, but she worked constantly. Laundry was her obsession. She washed clothes daily, even when no one had worn anything new. When Mrs. Wallace once laughed and said, "Ruth, we're running out of dirty clothes," Ruth replied without looking up, "They'll come." The Wallaces assumed grief explained it. Ruth had mentioned losing children long ago. The way she folded clothes, careful, reverent, felt like mourning, not madness. But there were rules. Ruth never allowed anyone else to do the laundry. Never. When Mr. Wallace tried once, she stood silently in the doorway until he stepped away. "You'll mix them," she said. "Mix what?" he asked. Ruth didn't answer. The neighbors avoided the Wallace's house, not openly, but subtly. One woman finally said, "Your maid. She's been here before." Mrs. Wallace frowned. "We just moved in." The woman swallowed. "That's what the other said too." More clothes appeared. Every morning, neatly folded stacks waited on the laundry table. Always clean, always warm, always slightly damp. Some were stained, brown, rust-colored, dark. Mrs. Wallace noticed that some garments were stitched with names on the inside collar. Names she didn't recognize, until one morning she found a shirt labeled Emily, her daughter's name. Her hands shook. She called Emily immediately. Emily answered, alive, confused. "Mom, I haven't been home in years." Mrs. Wallace hung up and vomited. That night she dreamed of children standing in the laundry room, naked and shivering, waiting as Ruth scrubbed their clothes violently. "Still dirty," Ruth whispered. "You didn't behave." The children never cried. They just stared. Mr. Wallace started hearing breathing in the laundry room, slow, wet, like lungs struggling. When he opened the door one night, Ruth was hand-washing clothes in the sink. Her hands were raw, bleeding. The water was red. "You're hurting yourself," he said. Ruth smiled faintly. "They hurt worse," she replied. The truth emerged through the house itself. Pipes clogged with hair, vents clogged with fabric fibers. Behind the dryer, Mrs. Wallace found something folded carefully. Skin, human skin, cleaned, pressed. Mrs. Wallace screamed. Ruth appeared instantly. "You weren't supposed to unfold that," she said. Ruth finally spoke that night. She told them everything. This house used to be an unofficial home. Families sent children here they didn't want. Unregistered, uncounted. Ruth was hired to clean, to wash, to erase. They came dirty, she said, in every way. The house learned from it, learned how to keep them. When the children disappeared, the house kept what it could. Stains, smells, memories. And Ruth stayed behind, because someone had to keep washing. "You're killing them," Mrs. Wallace whispered. Ruth shook her head. "No," she said, "I'm keeping them from smelling." The washing machine roared to life upstairs. Too loud, too full. Something banged from inside, hard, desperate. The power went out. In the darkness, the laundry room door slammed shut, locked, from the inside. Mrs. Wallace screamed for Ruth. Ruth's voice came calmly through the door. "They're ready to be folded." The banging inside the machine turned into screaming, childish, high-pitched. Mrs. Wallace tried to open the door. It wouldn't budge. The screaming stopped suddenly. Silence. Then, a ding, cycle complete. The door opened. Ruth stood smiling. Behind her, fresh stacks of laundry, perfectly folded, dry, warm. Mrs. Wallace noticed something horrifying. The house felt lighter, satisfied, like it had eaten. The Wallaces fled that night. They left everything. The house was condemned weeks later after a fire. Cause unknown. Bodies? None found. Only ash and folded clothing. Years later, at a donation center, a woman unfolded a child's sweater. Still warm, still damp. Inside the collar, stitched carefully, "Welcome home." And somewhere far away, a washing machine started on its own. Story 5, The House That Ate With Us. Every meal brought the family closer, not to each other, but to the house. The first dinner tasted better than it should have. Mrs. Grant noticed it immediately. The soup was richer, warmer, almost comforting in a way that made her chest ache. Her husband smiled mid-spoonful, eyes briefly closing, as if remembering something pleasant he couldn't name. Their new maid, Clara, stood silently near the kitchen door. She never sat, never ate, never spoke unless spoken to. "That's delicious," Mrs. Grant said politely. Clara nodded once. "The house prefers when you finish everything," she replied. They had hired Clara the same day they moved in. She was already there when the realtor unlocked the door. "I take care of meals," she said calmly, as if continuing a conversation they had already agreed to. She wore a simple apron, no stains, no wrinkles. Her hands were always warm, too warm. By the third day, the Grants realized something strange. They weren't getting hungry. Breakfast came whether they asked or not. Lunch appeared exactly when they thought about it. Dinner waited steaming on the table even when Clara hadn't been seen cooking. And yet, the refrigerator was always full. Too full. Food they didn't remember buying. Mrs. Grant found jars of preserves labeled with dates from decades ago. Still fresh. Still warm. Their son Oliver, aged 10, was the first to say it out loud. "The house eats too," he said between bites. Mrs. Grant laughed nervously. "Houses don't eat." Oliver frowned. "Then why does it make noise when we chew?" That night after dinner, the walls creaked rhythmically, like swallowing. Clara enforced rules. No food wasted, no meals skipped, no eating outside the house. When Mr. Grant brought home takeout one evening, Clara calmly threw it away. "The house doesn't like unfamiliar tastes," she said. Mr. Grant snapped, "It's just a house." Clara met his eyes for the first time. "And you're just guess," she replied. People stopped visiting. Friends complained of nausea, dizziness, sudden grief. One guest excused herself to the bathroom and never came back out. They found her standing in the hallway, pale, trembling. "I remember dying here," she whispered. She refused to explain further. Mrs. Grant began noticing changes. Her wedding ring felt tighter. Her favorite dress no longer fit. Not because she gained weight, but because she felt heavier, like something had settled inside her. Memories surfaced during meals. Not hers. A woman crying at the table, a man choking silently, a child hiding food in his pockets. Clara watched them eat with quiet approval. "She's remembering you," Clara said one night. Mrs. Grant put down her fork. "Who?" "The house." Oliver stopped eating. He pushed food around his plate, pale and withdrawn. "I don't want it inside me," he whispered. That night the house groaned loudly. Pipes burst, doors slammed. The dining table cracked down the middle. Clara stood over Oliver's bed. "You must eat," she said softly. Oliver shook his head. "I can hear them screaming when I swallow." Clara's expression hardened. "They were grateful," she said. "They became part of something permanent." Mr. Grant tried to leave. He packed a bag quietly at dawn. The front door wouldn't open. The windows wouldn't break. The house tightened. The walls pressed inward slightly, breathing faster. Clara appeared. "You can't leave hungry," she said. Mr. Grant screamed. At dinner that night, there was an extra plate. Mrs. Grant didn't ask what was being served. She already knew. The meat was tender, familiar. She cried as she chewed. The house sighed contentedly. Oliver vanished the next morning. His room was spotless, his bed made. A single chair added to the dining table. Mrs. Grant screamed until her throat bled. Clara placed a hand on her shoulder. "He feeds it better this way," she said. Mrs. Grant tried to starve herself. 3 days without eating. On the 4th day, the house forced her mouth open. Not physically, emotionally. Memories poured into her. Hunger that wasn't hers. Loneliness layered over decades. She ate. She forgot resisting. The final meal was quiet. Just Mrs. Grant and Clara. The table stretched longer than before. Dozens of empty chairs lined it. The walls pulsed gently. "You did well," Clara said. Mrs. Grant looked down at her hands. They were becoming translucent. "What happens now?" she asked. Clara smiled faintly. "You stay," she said. "I move on." Mrs. Grant felt herself sinking into the chair, into the table, into the floor. Her last thought wasn't fear. It was fullness. Months later, the house welcomed a new family. Warm lights, a full refrigerator, a quiet maid standing near the kitchen door. Her name was Clara, and dinner was already ready. Story 6, The Maid Who Counted Breaths. Everyone slept better after she arrived. That should have been the warning. The maid insisted on one rule the moment she was hired. No one sleeps alone. Her name was Miriam, and she said it with a calm certainty that made arguing feel childish. She was thin, middle-aged, with soft hands and a voice that never rose or fell. She smiled gently, like a nurse in a long-term ward. The Palmer family laughed it off at first. "Everyone has their quirks," Mr. Palmer said. Miriam smiled wider. "This one keeps you alive," she replied. The Palmers had moved into the house after a string of bad nights. Nightmares, insomnia, waking breathless. The house felt heavy after dark, like the air thickened once the sun went down. Miriam came with the house. The landlord never mentioned her, but she was already unpacking cleaning supplies when the family arrived. "She helps people rest," the landlord said quickly. "You'll see." That night, everyone slept deeply. Too deeply. Mrs. Palmer woke once, briefly, to the sound of whispering. Numbers. Soft. Steady. 21, 22, 23. She tried to move. She couldn't. At the foot of the bed, Miriam sat perfectly still, eyes focused on Mrs. Palmer's chest. "Good," Miriam whispered. "Consistent." Mrs. Palmer woke the next morning refreshed, terrified, and unable to explain why. Miriam established routines. Beds had to be positioned precisely, doors left slightly open, lights off completely. She insisted on checking everyone before sleep, a hand on the chest, an ear near the mouth, a quiet count under her breath. When Mr. Palmer joked, "What happens if we break the rule?" Miriam answered without humor, "Then the house breathes instead." The first death happened peacefully. Their elderly neighbor, Mr. Cole, came over one evening complaining of chest pain. They offered him the guest room. Miriam objected. "He must not sleep alone," she said. They ignored her. In the morning, Mr. Cole was dead in bed. No struggle, no marks, just a look of shock frozen on his face. The coroner ruled it natural causes. Miriam washed the sheets herself. "They always stop between breaths," she murmured. After that, the Palmers obeyed. The children shared a room again. Mr. and Mrs. Palmer never slept apart. If someone woke at night, Miriam appeared silently to count again. 31, 32, always stopping at 33. Never past it. Mrs. Palmer asked once, "Why 33?" Miriam paused. "That's when it listens," she said. The house changed at night. Walls pulsed faintly. Floorboards rose and fell, like lungs. When everyone slept together, the house was quiet. When someone stayed awake too long, the pipes rattled violently. The house hated uneven breathing. Their daughter Hannah, age 8, started waking up crying. "She's standing too close," Hannah whispered. "Who?" Mrs. Palmer asked. "The counting lady," Hannah said. "She doesn't blink when I pretend to stop." Mrs. Palmer confronted Miriam. "Are you watching them all night?" Miriam nodded. "Someone must," she said. "Children forget to breathe correctly." One night Mr. Palmer drank too much. He passed out on the couch, alone. Miriam froze when she found him. "No," she whispered urgently. She dragged him toward the bedroom, counting frantically. 1, 2, 3. The house groaned. The walls creaked inward. Mr. Palmer stopped breathing at 17. Miriam screamed, a sound no one had ever heard her make. The house exhaled. The children woke screaming. Mr. Palmer never did. His face was peaceful, almost relieved. Miriam rocked back and forth beside the body. "I was late," she whispered. "I was late again." Mrs. Palmer demanded answers. Miriam finally told the truth. The house had been built over a place where people suffocated, a quarantine ward, a sealed refuge, a mass grave of sleepers who never woke. Their final breaths soaked into the foundation. The house learned to breathe from them, but it needed rhythm, structure. Miriam was hired decades ago to watch patients sleep, to count. When the ward closed, the house kept her, because someone had to make sure breathing continued. "You let it eat him," Mrs. Palmer sobbed. Miriam shook her head. "No," she said softly. "I stopped it from eating all of you." That night, Miriam refused to leave the children's room. She sat between the beds, counting. Hannah pretended to sleep. She held her breath, just for a moment. The walls screamed. Miriam lunged forward. "Breathe," she cried. Too late. The room went silent. The Palmers fled the house the next morning. They left Miriam behind. She didn't follow. She sat on the floor, counting alone. 31, 32. The house breathed with her. Weeks later, new tenants moved in, complained of nightmares, of waking breathless. The landlord reassured them. "There's help," he said. That night, Miriam knocked gently on their bedroom door. "No one sleeps alone," she said kindly, "and I'll be counting." Story 7. The Maid Who Locked the Doors. Every door in the house could be opened, except the one she closed herself. The first thing the maid did was take the keys, all of them, front door, back door, storage rooms, even the small lock beneath the staircase that the family hadn't noticed before. She pointed it out. Her name was Evelyn. She didn't ask for permission. She simply held out her hand and said, "The house prefers consistency." Mr. Rowe hesitated. Evelyn tilted her head slightly. The locks clicked on their own. He handed over the keys. The Rowe family had moved in after a foreclosure. The price was suspiciously low. The realtor avoided eye contact and rushed the paperwork. "There's a caretaker," he said quickly. "She helps with maintenance." That was Evelyn. She was already inside when they arrived, standing in the hallway, facing a closed door. Evelyn enforced strict rules. No locked doors except hers. No opening doors after midnight. No asking what's behind closed rooms. "Some spaces," she said calmly, "are not meant to be understood." Their teenage son, Lucas, immediately hated her. "You can't just lock parts of our house," he snapped. Evelyn smiled politely. "I can," she said, and I did. The locked doors appeared gradually. First the storage room, then the study, then a bathroom no one used. Each time Evelyn locked them from the inside. No keyhole, no handle movement, just sealed. When Mrs. Rowe asked what was inside, Evelyn replied, "Stillness." The noises started soon after, scratching, from behind the locked doors, slow at first, then more deliberate, as if something was learning where the wood was weakest. Lucas pressed his ear to the study door one night. He heard breathing, multiple breaths, out of sync. Evelyn appeared instantly. "You shouldn't listen," she said. "What's in there?" Lucas demanded. Evelyn's smile faded. "What curiosity wakes up?" she replied. Mr. Rowe tried to break one door open, a hammer, a crowbar. The wood didn't splinter, it flexed, like muscle. The door pulsed under the impact. The house groaned. Evelyn placed her hand on the door. "It's uncomfortable when you do that," she said softly. Mr. Rowe dropped the crowbar. His nose started bleeding. At night, Evelyn walked the halls, locking, unlocking, relocking, always from the inside. The sound of keys echoed through the house long after she passed. Mrs. Rowe woke one night to find Evelyn standing at the foot of the bed. "You left a door open?" Evelyn whispered. Mrs. Rowe looked. The bedroom door was wide open. She was sure she'd closed it. Evelyn shut it gently, locked it, from the inside. They realized something horrifying on the fifth night. The locked rooms were moving. The study door had shifted closer to the stairs. The bathroom door was now at the end of a different hallway. The house was rearranging itself, around the doors, keeping them central, important. Lucas mapped the house on paper. By morning, the map was wrong. "What happens if someone opens one?" Lucas asked at dinner. Evelyn paused her cleaning. Her eyes darkened. "Then the house learns something new," she said, "and it gets hungrier." Mrs. Rowe lost her appetite. The first punishment came quietly. Mrs. Rowe opened the linen closet, a door Evelyn had never locked. Inside, instead of towels, was a narrow hallway. Breathing. The door slammed shut behind her. She screamed. The walls pressed inward, ribs cracking. The air thinned. Then suddenly, the door opened. Mrs. Rowe collapsed out, gasping. Evelyn stood over her. "You wandered," she said gently. "That was kind." That night, Evelyn locked the children's room from the inside. Lucas rattled the handle. "Open it!" "You've been asking questions," Evelyn replied calmly. The house noticed. The scratching behind the walls grew louder, closer. Something sniffed. Mr. Rowe snapped. He tackled Evelyn near the front door. They struggled. For the first time, she looked afraid. Not of him, of the house. The walls shuddered violently. Doors slammed shut throughout the house. Every lock turned at once. Evelyn screamed. "You don't force exits!" she cried. The floor split open. Something reached up. Hands. Too many. Evelyn was dragged downward, screaming apologies. "I kept them closed," she begged. "I kept them contained." The house swallowed her. Silence followed. The locks fell open. Every door unlocked at once. The Rows ran. They didn't stop running. Weeks later, the house stood empty again. Doors wide open, waiting. Then someone new arrived. A young woman. She stepped inside and paused. The doors slammed shut behind her. Locks clicked. She smiled faintly, picked up the keys from the hallway table, and whispered, "I'll keep them closed this time." Story 8. The Maid Who Cleaned the Mirrors. The mirrors were spotless. That's how they knew someone was missing. The maid cleaned mirrors every morning. Not casually, not quickly, with ritualistic patience. Her name was Lydia, and she treated reflections the way priests treat altars. Soft cloth, steady breathing, eyes lowered until the very last moment. "Mirrors remember," she said the first day. "That's why they must be wiped carefully." The Brennan family laughed politely. They stopped laughing after the first face disappeared. The house had mirrors everywhere. Hallway, bathroom, guest room. Even one mounted awkwardly at the end of the stairs, angled so you could see yourself descending long before you reached it. Lydia insisted on keeping them uncovered. "No cloths," she warned. "No cracks. No turning them to the wall." Mrs. Brennan asked, "Why?" Lydia smiled thinly. "Because then they look for you instead." The first change was subtle. Mr. Brennan noticed his reflection blinked half a second late. He rubbed his eyes. It corrected itself. He didn't mention it. The second change was worse. Their son, Aaron, age 14, waved at his reflection one morning. It didn't wave back. It just stared. Aaron screamed. Lydia arrived instantly, wiping the mirror in slow circles. "It was only curious," she said. "You shouldn't startle them." That night, Mrs. Brennan dreamed of standing in the bathroom, watching herself brush her teeth. Only the woman in the mirror kept brushing long after Mrs. Brennan stopped, smiling wider each stroke. When Mrs. Brennan woke, her gums were bleeding. The mirror was fogged, finger marks pressed outward from the inside. Lydia explained the rule at breakfast. "No one stares too long," she said calmly, "and no one cleans mirrors but me." Mr. Brennan scoffed. "They're just reflections." Lydia met his gaze. "Then why do they age when you don't?" she asked. No one spoke after that. Aaron stopped using mirrors. He covered his bedroom one with a blanket. The house did not like that. Cracks formed in the walls around it. Whispering began at night. Not voices. Breathing. Matching his own. Lydia removed the blanket while Aaron slept. "You made it lonely," she whispered to the glass. The reflection smiled. The first disappearance happened on a Tuesday. Mrs. Brennan's sister, Claire, visited for lunch. She went to wash her hands. She never came back. They found the bathroom empty. No struggle, no blood, just the mirror, perfectly clean, too clean. Where Claire's reflection should have been, there was nothing, not emptiness, depth, like a hallway receding inward. Lydia closed the door gently. "She stayed," she said. Panic set in. Mr. Brennan smashed one mirror with a chair. The glass didn't shatter. It screamed, a high, piercing shriek that sent him to his knees, bleeding from the ears. Lydia slapped the chair from his hands. "You don't break windows when something is looking through them," she hissed. The mirror healed. Slowly, like skin knitting. Lydia finally told them the truth. The house had been built over a place where people were watched. Interrogation rooms, observation wards, rooms with one-way glass. People learned to survive by controlling their faces, by practicing expressions, by leaving parts of themselves behind in reflections. Over time, the reflections stayed. The bodies left. The house filled with watchers who had never been allowed to look away. "They get lonely," Lydia said. "They want turns." At night, reflection stepped closer, not out, closer to the glass, pressing faces forward. Aaron woke screaming when his reflection whispered, "I can finish your days better than you." Mrs. Brennan noticed her reflection, sometimes moved while she stood still, fixing her hair, adjusting posture, practicing. Lydia began cleaning mirrors more often, twice a day, then 3 times. Her hands shook. "You're losing control," Mrs. Brennan said. Lydia nodded. "They're impatient," she admitted. "Too many faces, not enough exits." Mr. Brennan vanished next, 1 second brushing his teeth, the next, gone. The mirror was fogged, a handprint smeared outward. Lydia sank to the floor. "They chose him," she whispered. "He watched himself too often." Mrs. Brennan screamed. The house echoed it back, perfectly, in her own voice. Aaron refused to look at any reflection. He walked with his head down, covered his eyes during showers. Still, at night, he felt fingers tracing his face, learning, measuring. Lydia stood guard outside his room, counting breaths, whispering apologies. "I can't stop them forever," she sobbed. The final night came quietly. All the mirrors fogged at once. The house felt attentive. Lydia gathered the family in the hallway. "One of you must stay," she said. "That's the balance." Mrs. Brennan shook her head violently. "No!" Aaron screamed. "I'll go," Lydia said. She stood before the stairway mirror, smoothed her uniform. For the first time, she looked directly at her reflection. It smiled with relief. "I kept you clean," Lydia whispered. "Be gentle." The glass rippled, pulled her in. Her scream echoed from every mirror at once. Then silence. Morning came. The mirrors were calm. Normal. Mrs. Brennan and Aaron fled the house. They never looked back. Years later, in a new home, Aaron noticed something. His reflection blinked late, smiled wider than he felt, and whispered softly, "She kept us clean once. Now it's your turn to look." Story 9, The Maid Who Prepared the House. The maid arrived the day before the funeral. The problem was, no one in the house was dead yet. The maid's name was Agnes. She rang the doorbell at exactly 6 p.m., just as the sun dipped low enough to stain the windows amber. She wore black, not a uniform, not mourning clothes, but something in between. Practical, final. Mrs. Holt opened the door and immediately felt it. That strange tightening in the chest, the certainty that something irreversible had just begun. "I'm here to prepare the house," Agnes said calmly. Mrs. Holt frowned. "Prepare it for what?" Agnes smiled gently. "For quiet." The Holts had just moved in. The house was old but intact. Too intact. No dust, no smell of abandonment. As if it had been waiting with held breath. They hadn't hired a maid. Mr. Holt protested, but Agnes stepped inside anyway. "The house already accepted me," she said. "That's usually the longest part." The front door closed behind her. It locked itself. Agnes began immediately. She opened windows, then closed them again, counting under her breath. She removed photographs from the walls and placed them face down. She loosened light bulbs just enough to flicker. Mrs. Holt watched, unsettled. "Why are you doing that?" she asked. Agnes answered without stopping. "So it doesn't recognize you too clearly." That night, Agnes cooked dinner. No one was hungry. Still, she served full plates. "It's rude not to eat on the first night," she said. "The house mistakes that for defiance." Their son Matthew, age 12, whispered, "She smells like hospitals." Agnes paused. "That's where houses learn patience," she replied. After dinner, Agnes began measuring rooms, not with tools, with steps, counting softly as she crossed each space, touching walls, pressing her ear to them, nodding as if confirming a diagnosis. "This one goes first," she murmured in the hallway. Mrs. Holt's stomach twisted. "What do you mean goes first?" Agnes looked surprised. "Oh," she said, "you haven't noticed yet." The first sign came at 11:47 p.m. The clocks stopped. Every one of them. Phones, microwaves, wristwatches. Time froze at the same minute. Agnes sat at the dining table, polishing silverware that hadn't been used. "When the house is ready," she explained, "time stops being useful." That night, Mr. Holt dreamed he was lying on the living room floor, unable to move, while Agnes covered the furniture with white sheets. When he woke, the sheets were there. Agnes forbade sleeping in bedrooms. "Beds are for after," she said. They slept in the living room instead. Barely. The house groaned all night, settling sounds that felt intentional, deliberate, like bones being adjusted. Matthew woke screaming. "The walls are leaning," he cried. They were, just slightly. By the second day, Agnes had sealed off rooms. Not locked, finished, doors closed, cracks stuffed, handles wrapped in cloth. "These are complete," she said softly. Mrs. Holt tried to open one. Agnes grabbed her wrist hard enough to bruise. "You don't interrupt a preparation," she snapped. Then just as quickly, she softened. "I'm sorry. I forget you're new." Mrs. Holt confronted her. "Who are you, really?" Agnes sighed and finally sat down. "I'm what comes before," she said. "I stay so the house doesn't rush." "Rush what?" Agnes looked at Matthew. "Loss." That afternoon, Mr. Holt collapsed. No warning, no illness. He simply sat down and didn't stand back up, breathing shallow, eyes unfocused. Agnes knelt beside him, checking his pulse. "Good," she whispered. The house chose gently. Mrs. Holt screamed. Agnes placed a blanket over Mr. Holt's legs. "Not yet," she said. "It's rude to cover the face too early." The truth came in fragments. This house was not haunted, it was expectant, built in a place where people came to die slowly. Hospice, plague home, war shelter. Death lingered long enough to soak into the structure. The house learned the pattern. Now, when families arrived, it waited until Agnes came. "She prepares it so it doesn't take everyone at once," Agnes explained. "You'd be surprised how impatient houses can be." Mrs. Holt shook violently. "You let people die." Agnes shook her head. "No," she said. "I keep them human until the end." That night, Agnes dressed the house. Curtains drawn, floors cleaned obsessively, candles placed but not lit. Matthew asked quietly, "Who dies next?" Agnes hesitated. "That depends," she said gently, "on who lets go first." Mrs. Holt tried to escape. The door opened easily. Outside, the street was wrong. Flat, silent, no houses, just fog. Agnes stood behind her. "You can't leave before it finishes," she said. "That's how it follows you." Mrs. Holt stepped back inside. The door shut. Mr. Holt died at dawn. Peacefully. Agnes closed his eyes, covered his face. The house sighed. Walls relaxed. One room reopened. Matthew cried until his voice broke. Agnes knelt beside him. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." He looked up at her. "Do you die too?" Agnes smiled sadly. "Eventually," she said, "but not here." The final choice came that evening. Agnes packed her bag. "The house is almost done," she said. Mrs. Holt stared at her. "You're leaving us?" Agnes nodded. "One of you remains," she said. "That's the agreement." Matthew screamed. "No!" Agnes knelt in front of him. "You'll forget," she promised. "Children always do." Mrs. Holt understood then. The house wasn't choosing randomly. It was choosing who would stay with it. Mrs. Holt made her decision. "I'll stay," she said. Agnes closed her eyes briefly. "Thank you," she whispered. The house shuddered at approval. Morning came. Matthew woke alone. The house felt normal, quiet, empty. The front door was unlocked. Agnes was gone. Years later, Matthew would remember very little. Just a house, a maid in black, in the feeling of being gently prepared for something he never fully saw. The house stands occupied to this day. Families move in, live long lives, because sometimes, if you're very lucky, the maid comes first. Welcome to Creepytalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1. The order that shouldn't exist. Some addresses are not mistakes. They are invitations. And the night I accepted that pizza order, something accepted me back. I've delivered pizzas for almost 3 years. Rain, snow, drunk customers, creepy neighborhoods. I thought I had seen everything. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for that one delivery. The delivery that still makes my hands shake when I smell melted cheese late at night. This story is not easy for me to tell, because what happened wasn't just scary, it felt wrong. Like I had stepped into a place where I was never supposed to exist. It was a Friday night, just 5 minutes before midnight. The pizza store was loud, phones ringing, ovens beeping, coworkers laughing, the usual chaos. I was tired, counting minutes until my shift ended. That's when the order appeared on the screen. Order number 3,471, large pepperoni extra cheese. No onions, paid in cash. Normal. Then I looked at the address, and something inside me tightened. I read it again, then again. The street name didn't sound familiar, not even slightly. I leaned toward the screen and asked my manager, "Hey, have we ever delivered to this address before?" He stared at it for a few seconds. His smile faded. "No, but GPS says it exists." That answer didn't comfort me. The address was on the very edge of town, past the last gas station, past the last street light. I hesitated. Something about it felt off, but I needed the money. And honestly, I didn't want to look scared in front of everyone. So I grabbed the pizza. That was my second mistake. I got into my car and started driving. At first, everything was normal. Traffic, billboards, neon lights. But after 10 minutes, the world began to change. Houses became older, roads narrower, street lights farther apart. The radio suddenly crackled, then went silent. No static, just silence. I checked my phone. 11:47 p.m. Google Maps showed the destination was only 2 minutes away. But there were no houses around, just trees. Tall, dark trees that leaned toward the road like they were listening. That's when the fog rolled in. Thick, heavy, fast. It swallowed the road behind me. My phone buzzed. An incoming call. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "Hello?" I said. For a moment there was only breathing. Slow, deep. Then a man's voice spoke. "You're late." My stomach dropped. I'm at the location, but I don't see a house," I replied. There was a pause. And then he said something I will never forget. "That's because you're standing in front of it." The call ended. I stared at my phone. My hands were sweating. I stepped out of the car. The fog was thicker now, curling around my legs. That's when I saw it. The house didn't appear suddenly. It revealed itself, as if the fog was pulling away a curtain. Tall, black, windowless, no porch light, no mailbox, no sound. Just a massive structure standing where seconds ago there was nothing. My heart was pounding. I checked the address again. Same number, same street. I walked closer. Each step felt heavier than the last. The air around the house felt colder, dead, like sound itself couldn't survive there. Then I noticed something terrifying. There were no footprints in the dirt, none, not even mine. Before I could react, the front door creaked open by itself. Slowly, painfully slowly. The darkness inside the house was absolute, not black, something deeper. Then a whisper floated out, soft, close, calling my name. I froze. I never told anyone my name. Not the store, not the customer. And yet, they knew. My instincts screamed at me to run, to get back in my car, to leave the pizza on the ground and disappear. But my body didn't listen. It felt like the house was pulling me forward. I stepped onto the porch. The wood didn't creak. It felt solid. Too solid, like stone pretending to be wood. I cleared my throat. "Pizza delivery," I said, my voice shaking. No answer. Then the door opened wider, and I saw him. A man stood inside, tall, thin, wearing clothes that looked decades old. His face was pale, too pale. His eyes were wide open, unblinking, not even human blinking. He stared at me like I was an object, not a person. "You took long," he said calmly. "I'm sorry," I replied. "That'll be—" He interrupted me. "Cash, exact amount." He handed me the money. His fingers were ice cold. I counted quickly. It was exact, down to the cent. As I handed him the pizza, I noticed something behind him. A hallway, long, dark, and lined with doors. So many doors, all slightly open, and from behind them, I heard breathing. My heart started racing. I stepped back. I need to go," I said. The man smiled, but his eyes didn't. "Of course," he replied. "We'll see you again." That sentence hit me like a punch. I turned and walked away. Fast. I didn't run. I don't know why, but every instinct told me not to run. I reached my car and got inside. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely start the engine. I looked in the rearview mirror. The house was gone. No porch, no door, no man. Just fog and trees and silence. My phone buzzed again. A message from the same unknown number. It read, "Next time, don't be late." I thought it was over until the next night when the same address ordered again. And this time, the order was for 2 pizzas. Story 2, the order that came back. I knew I should quit that job the moment the same address appeared again. Because some places don't want pizza, they want permission. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that house, the fog, the silent porch, that man's unblinking eyes. I kept telling myself it was exhaustion, stress, my imagination running wild. But there was one detail my brain couldn't explain. The address didn't exist on any map anymore. The next morning I checked. Google Maps, nothing. Apple Maps, no results. Even Old Town records online showed no such a street. It was like the place had been erased. And yet, at 11:42 p.m. the next night, the order returned. The screen beeped. Everyone else groaned. Busy night again. I froze because I already knew the number. Order number 3,489, 2 large pepperoni, extra cheese, no onions, paid in cash. Same handwriting style, same format, same address. My manager noticed my face. "You okay?" he asked. I shook my head slowly. "That address, I delivered there last night." He laughed. "Yeah, and?" "There was no house," I said. Then suddenly, there was. His smile faded. "You serious?" I nodded. He stared at the screen longer this time. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "System says this is the first order ever from that location." I told him I couldn't take it. I begged him to send someone else. But drivers were short that night. He sighed. "If you don't want it, you can clock out," he said. I needed the money. That was my third mistake. I took the pizzas. My hands were shaking as I placed them in the warmer bag. I told myself one thing over and over. I will drop it and leave. I will not go inside. The drive felt longer this time. The city disappeared faster. Even the radio refused to turn on. The fog was already waiting, like it knew I was coming. My phone buzzed halfway there. Unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang again, and again. Finally, I picked up. "You're early," the voice said. My heart skipped. "You ordered again," I replied, trying to sound calm. Yes, he said. We were hungry. I pulled over. I'm leaving the pizzas at the end of the road, I said. You can come get them. There was silence, then soft laughter. You won't do that, he said. How do you know? I snapped. Because you're already here. My headlights flickered. The fog thickened instantly. Google Maps spun, then froze. You have arrived. I stepped out of the car. The house was already there, waiting. This time the front door was open, wide open, darkness pouring out like smoke, and I could hear a movement inside. Footsteps, many footsteps. My instinct screamed, leave, run, now. I placed the pizzas on the ground. I'm leaving them here, I shouted. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Then a voice spoke, not the man, a woman. She doesn't like when you break the rules. She, I whispered. The lights inside the house flickered on. For the first time I saw the interior, and I wish I hadn't. The walls were lined with photographs, hundreds of them. Every photo showed the same thing. A delivery driver, different faces, different uniforms, different decades, all standing on the same porch, all holding pizza. My blood turned cold. I stepped back. That's when I noticed something worse. Some photos were scratched out, faces torn, eyes burned black, and beneath them, dates. None of those drivers were recent. The man stepped into the doorway. Same pale face, same unblinking stare. You're inside the delivery window, he said calmly. I don't want the money, I said. Just take the food. He tilted his head. That's not how it works. A door behind him creaked open, then another, then another. Figures began stepping out. Men, women, all dressed like delivery drivers. Their faces empty, their eyes hollow. They stared at me like I was next. That's impossible, I whispered. The man smiled. We were like you once. My chest tightened. What did you do to them? He stepped closer. We didn't do anything, he said softly. They accepted the order. Something grabbed my ankle. I screamed. A hand, pale and cold, reached from the ground itself. I kicked free and stumbled backward. The porch boards cracked beneath me. The house groaned, like it was angry. Go! A voice whispered suddenly. I looked around. One of the drivers, a young guy, and stared at me. His lips barely moved. Don't look back, he said. They hate that. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I jumped into my car and slammed the door. The engine struggled, then started. I sped away as fast as I could. The fog chased me. Just before the house disappeared from view, I saw the man raise his hand and wave. I drove straight to the police station, hands shaking, voice cracking. I told them everything. They checked the location. There was nothing. No house, no road, no record. They asked me one question before letting me go. Have you been feeling watched lately? I didn't answer because my phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from the same number. You ran. That makes her curious. I quit the job the next morning. I changed my number. I moved apartments. I tried to forget. But 3 weeks later, a pizza box appeared outside my door, still warm. Inside was a note, written in familiar handwriting. Delivery is a two-way street. That's when I realized the house didn't need an address anymore, because now it knew where I lived. Story 3, She Who Places the Orders. The house didn't follow me physically, it followed me mentally. And once you realize someone is watching you sleep, fear becomes permanent. I didn't open the pizza box. I couldn't. It sat outside my apartment door for hours, steaming slightly, like it had just been delivered. No knock, no footsteps, No sound of someone leaving. Just food that shouldn't exist. When I finally worked up the courage to look inside, my hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. The pizza looked normal, too normal, but the smell made my stomach turn. Not spoiled, not burnt. It smelled old, like something reheated after years. Under the pizza was the note. 3 words written in dark ink. She is awake. I slammed the box shut and shoved it into the trash chute. Then I locked my door. Then I checked it again. Then I sat on my couch with the lights on until morning. I told myself it was over. No more deliveries. No more calls. No more fog. I even convinced myself that I had imagined the whole thing. Until the dream started. Every night, the same dream. I was standing in front of the house, but this time, I was inside. The hallway stretched endlessly, doors lining both sides. Behind each door, something breathing, waiting. And at the very end of the hallway, a woman stood facing the wall, tall, still, her hair dragged across the floor like wet rope. I tried to speak. I couldn't. She slowly turned her head, and before I could see her face, I woke up screaming. By the 5th night, I stopped sleeping. That's when the messages started again. Not calls, texts, always at 11:47 p.m. Unknown. Do you hear her yet? I blocked the number. Another one texted. Different number. Same words. I blocked that too. Then another and another. It felt like the house had infinite phones. I finally broke. I called a friend, Mark, and told him everything. He laughed at first, until I showed him the messages, until I described the photos in the house, until he saw my hands shaking. You need to confront this, he said. Go back. Prove it's not real. I stared at him. You didn't see her, I whispered. Who? He asked. I swallowed. The woman. That night we drove together. I didn't want to be alone anymore. The road was familiar now, too familiar, like muscle memory. As we crossed the edge of town, Mark frowned. This road doesn't show on my GPS, he said. Neither did mine. The fog arrived early, thick and heavy. Mark slowed the car. Man, this is messed up, he muttered. Then we saw it, the house, standing where nothing should be. Mark's laughter died instantly. That wasn't there before, he said. I didn't respond. My throat was tight. We stepped out together. The air felt wrong, dense, pressurized, like the world was holding its breath. The front door was closed, but the porch light flicked on by itself. Then the door opened, and she stepped out. She was tall, too tall, her body unnaturally thin, her skin pale, almost translucent. Her face blurred, like my eyes refused to focus on it. She spoke without moving her mouth. You accepted, she said. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It echoed inside my skull. I delivered a pizza, I said. That's all. She tilted her head. There are many kinds of delivery, she replied. Mark grabbed my arm. We're leaving, he said. She turned toward him, slowly, and smiled. Mark screamed, not a normal scream, a primal one, like something inside him recognized her. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. I can hear her, he sobbed. She's inside my head. That's when I understood. She wasn't the house. The house was hers, a mouth, a trap. She stepped closer. Each order feeds the door, she said. Each driver brings us closer. To what? I shouted. She looked past me, into the fog. Home. The doors behind her opened, every single one. The driver stepped out again, silent, watching, waiting. Why me? I demanded. She looked at me. This time I saw her eyes. They were empty, not dark, empty. You answered, she said simply. Mark collapsed, unconscious, or worse. I dragged him toward the car. My body moved on instinct. Fear turned into pure survival. As I shoved him into the passenger seat, she spoke again. "You cannot leave empty-handed," she said. I turned. The pizza box sat on the porch. Fresh, steaming, waiting. I understood then. The delivery was never complete, not until someone else took my place. I drove, faster than I ever had before. Mark didn't wake up until morning. He doesn't remember anything. Not the house, not her, not the screams. But I do, and so does she. That night my phone buzzed again. A final message. One last delivery. The next order wasn't sent to a house. It was sent to a hospital with my name on it. Story 4. The delivery that wasn't meant to be refused. The order didn't want a location anymore. It wanted a body. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and fear. That sharp, sterile scent clung to my clothes as I stood in the hallway, staring at my phone. The message was still there. One last delivery. Below it was an address. Not a street, not a house. A room number. Room 417, Intensive Care Unit. My name was written beneath it. Correct spelling, correct middle initial. I hadn't told anyone my middle initial. Mark was lying in that room, unconscious, connected to machines that beeped softly like mechanical heartbeats. The doctors said he collapsed from stress. They said there was no physical cause. I knew better. I tried deleting the message. It came back. I powered off my phone. It turned itself back on. The screen flickered and another message appeared. Delivery window closing. I hadn't slept in days. Reality felt thin, like it could tear if I pressed too hard. As I stood outside Mark's room, I noticed something that made my blood freeze. A pizza box sat on a chair near the wall. Plain cardboard. No logo. No receipt. Still warm. A nurse walked past me. "Who brought that?" I asked. She frowned. "What box?" I turned back. It was gone. The chair was empty. Inside Mark's room, the lights flickered. The heart monitor spiked suddenly. The machines began beeping faster. Then Mark screamed. His eyes snapped open, wide, terrified. He grabbed my wrist with shocking strength. "She's here," he whispered. I shook my head. "No, you're safe," I lied. "She followed you," he said. "She follows the one who accepts." The lights went out, not just in the room, in the entire hallway. Emergency lights glowed red, bathing everything in blood-colored shadows. And then I heard footsteps, bare feet, slow, dragging. The temperature dropped instantly. My breath fogged the air. The machines went silent, flatline. "She doesn't like hospitals," a voice said softly. Not Mark's, not human. I turned. She stood at the foot of the bed. The woman from the house, her form sharper now, more real. Her hair hung like wet black threads. Her face still refused to settle into focus. "You brought the order too far," she said. "I didn't bring anything," I shouted. She tilted her head. "You brought yourself." Mark screamed again. His body arched violently. I backed away, panic choking me. "What do you want?" I yelled. She raised one long finger and pointed at Mark. "A replacement," she said. "No," I whispered. She smiled. "The first delivery is always free." The door slammed shut. The red lights flickered wildly. I heard whispers all around me, voices overlapping, hungry, impatient. "Choose," she said calmly. "You or him." I dropped to my knees. "This isn't fair," I sobbed. She crouched in front of me, her face inches from mine. "Neither was the invitation," she replied. The room began to change. The walls stretched. The ceiling lifted unnaturally high. Doors appeared where there were none. Hospital beds lined the walls, each occupied, each patient staring directly at me. They were all delivery drivers. Some wore old uniforms, some modern, some barely recognizable as human. Their mouths opened in unison, and they spoke one word. "Deliver!" I screamed. I covered my ears. "Stop!" I shouted. She stood. "This is what happens when you refuse," she said. "The order finds balance." Mark's grip tightened. His eyes rolled back. Blood trickled from his nose. I felt something inside me crack. "Take me," I said. The room went silent. She smiled wider than she ever had. "You already belong," she said, "but I admire your willingness." She turned toward Mark. "He stays," she said. Relief hit me like a wave until she finished speaking. "But you deliver for us now." The walls snapped back to normal. The lights flickered on. The machines resumed their beeping. Mark collapsed onto the bed, unconscious but alive. She was gone. The nurses rushed in. Chaos, shouting, questions. I stood there shaking, knowing something inside me had just signed a contract. That night I dreamed of doors, hundreds of them, each with an address written on it. None of them familiar, all of them waiting. When I woke up, my phone buzzed. A new app had installed itself. No icon, just text. "Order ready delivery in 24 hours. Below it was a name, not mine, a stranger, and a feeling settled in my chest, a terrible understanding. I wasn't being hunted anymore. I was being trained. I survived the house by becoming something worse because the next delivery was my first. Story 5, my first delivery. The worst part wasn't being forced to deliver. It was how quickly it started to feel normal. The app didn't have a logo, no icon, just words burned into my screen like scars. "Order ready delivery in 24 hours. I tried deleting it. My phone vibrated violently and shut itself off. When it restarted, the app was still there, waiting. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? "Hey, by the way, an impossible house owned by something not human has turned me into a delivery driver for lost souls." I stayed quiet. That silence cost me more than screaming ever could. At exactly 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. The app opened by itself. A new order appeared. Not pizza, not food. Delivery item. Unspecified pickup. You drop location. "See you soon." My chest tightened. I felt something shift inside me, like a lock clicking open. The world outside my apartment changed. The air thickened. Lights dimmed. The familiar streets twisted subtly, like a reflection in warped glass. And then I noticed something terrifying. I knew exactly where to go. I didn't check maps. I didn't need directions. My body remembered the road. The fog welcomed me like an old friend. The house was already there, but it looked different now. Cleaner, more solid, as if it had grown stronger, fed. The door opened before I reached the porch. She stood there, waiting. "You're on time," she said. I hated how relieved that made me feel. "You'll deliver this," she continued. Something appeared in my hands. A box, not cardboard, not wood. It pulsed slightly like it was alive. "What's inside?" I asked. She smiled. Someone who thought they were done. The box was heavier than it looked. I could feel movement inside. Scratching, soft, desperate sounds. My stomach churned. "You don't have to like it," she said. "You just have to finish it." The address appeared in my mind, not on the phone. Inside my head, an apartment building downtown, occupied, normal. "That's a real place," I whispered. She nodded. "They always are." I drove, my hands steady, my heart numb. The city felt asleep, too asleep, like it had been muted. I reached the building, lights on, cars parked, life happening. This wasn't some forgotten road. This was someone's home. I stood outside the door for a long time. The box grew warmer, the scratching louder. "Please!" A muffled voice whimpered from inside. I dropped it, staggered back. my breathing ragged. My phone buzzed. Delivery window closing. I knocked. The door opened. A man stood there, mid-30s, tired eyes, normal, too normal. Delivery, he asked. I nodded. I couldn't speak. He took the box. The moment his hands touched it, the scratching stopped. The box went still. He frowned. "What is this?" he asked. The door slammed shut on its own, locks clicking, chains rattling. His expression shifted from confusion to terror. I heard screaming, not loud, muffled, contained, like the sound was being swallowed. The building lights flickered. Then everything went silent. The door reopened. The man was gone. The box was gone. In its place was a receipt. Delivered. Thank you for your service. My hands shook. My knees gave out. I vomited on the hallway floor. The world snapped back. Cars passed. A dog barked. Someone laughed in the distance. Life continued, like nothing had happened. I stumbled back to my car. My phone buzzed again. Order complete, reputation increased. Below it was a message. See? You did well. I didn't go home. I sat in my car until sunrise, watching my reflection change, just slightly. That morning I noticed something new. When I closed my eyes, I could see doors. Not all at once, but when I focused. Addresses floated on them, some glowing faintly, some dark, hungry. I understood then. This wasn't punishment, it was inheritance. The next night another order arrived, then another. Each one different, each one heavier. Some begged, some screamed, some were silent. Those were the worst. With every delivery, the house felt closer, not physically, internally, like it was building a room inside me. I stopped dreaming, because dreams require escape. One night I saw my own apartment door among the addresses. It glowed faintly, pending. I confronted her. What happens when there's no one left? I asked. She looked almost amused. There will always be someone, she said. What about me? I asked. She stepped closer, close enough that the air hurt. You are no longer the destination, she whispered. You are the route. That was the night I realized the truth. I wasn't delivering people to her. I was delivering hope, and she was eating it alive. The next order wasn't a stranger. It was someone I loved. Story 6. The name on the order. I had delivered strangers without mercy, but the moment I saw that name, I understood what hell really costs. The app opened by itself. I didn't touch my phone. I didn't need to. I felt it before I saw it. That familiar pressure in my chest, that internal pull, like something tightening a leash around my spine. New order received. I stared at the screen, praying, begging that it would be another unknown address, another faceless victim. It wasn't. The name was written clearly, perfect spelling. No mistakes. My mother. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor face down. For a second, I considered leaving it there, pretending I hadn't seen it, but I already knew. Once you see the order, it sees you back. I picked the phone up slowly. The screen confirmed it. Delivery item, unspecified drop location, care facility, room 12, B delivery window. Tonight my hands were numb. My thoughts fragmented. She wasn't supposed to be part of this. She was sick, yes, but alive, human, unaware. No, I whispered. The room felt smaller. The walls leaned inward. The air thickened. My phone buzzed again. A message appeared beneath the order. Personal deliveries strengthen the bond. I screamed. I hurled the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. The screen cracked, but the app remained. Perfect. Unbroken. I drove without knowing how. Muscle memory. Automatic. Like I was already dead and something else was moving me. The care facility lights were on. Warm, safe, normal. That made it worse. I stood in the hallway outside her room. Room 12B. I could hear her coughing softly inside. Alive, breathing. I felt the box form in my hands, not appear. Form, growing heavier by the second. This one didn't scratch, didn't beg. It just waited. You don't have to do this. Her voice came from behind me. I turned. She stood there, watching, calm, patient. You said I had a choice. I snapped. She smiled faintly. I said you could choose how much it hurts. I won't, I said. I won't deliver her. She stepped closer. The hallway lights dimmed. Time slowed. Then someone else will, she said softly. The doors along the hallway began to open, one by one. Patients stepped out, elderly, weak, confused, each holding a box identical to mine. My blood ran cold. You're using them, I whispered. She nodded. Everyone delivers eventually. I looked at my mother's door, at the light under the frame, at the sound of her breathing, and something inside me broke. I ran, not away, toward her room. I kicked the door open. She looked up from her bed, surprised, then scared. What's wrong? She asked. I dropped the box. It shattered. Whatever was inside screamed, a sound that didn't belong to a throat. The walls shook. She stood abruptly, too abruptly, her eyes unfocused, her posture stiff. She looked past me, toward the hallway, toward her. I remember now, my mother said quietly. My heart stopped. She visited me weeks ago, she continued. Promised I wouldn't be alone. No, I whispered. Tears streamed down my face. She's lying. My mother smiled gently, the way she used to when I was scared as a child. She said you'd bring me home, she said. The woman stepped into the doorway. This delivery completes the circle, she said. Something snapped inside me. Not fear, not panic. Rage. You need consent, I said suddenly. She paused, interested. The first rule, I continued, you said it yourself. We accept the order. The hallway trembled. The doors shook. The drivers whispered. My mother never accepted anything, I said. Her smile faltered, just slightly. She didn't answer, I said louder. She didn't agree. The woman stared at my mother, then back at me. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Rules change, she said. Only if both sides agree, I replied. Silence, heavy, oppressive. My mother looked at me, truly looked. Her eyes cleared. What is she? She asked. I took my mother's hand. She's the wrong address, I said. The woman screamed, not in anger, in pain. The house screamed with her. The walls cracked. The doors collapsed. The drivers fell to their knees. You don't get to choose anymore, she hissed. I already did, I said. I grabbed my mother. We ran. The building warped. Hallways stretched. Doors melted. But the exit remained. We burst outside. The night air burned my lungs. The fog recoiled. Behind us, the building folded inward, like a paper structure collapsing into itself. My phone buzzed one last time. The screen flickered violently. Order failed consequences, pending, the woman's voice echoed from everywhere. You broke the cycle, she said, but cycles don't die. My mother collapsed into my arms, crying, confused, alive. Sirens approached, real ones, human ones. The world stabilized. But I knew, deep down, this wasn't over, because as the sun rose, I felt it, that internal room, still there, one door left. I saved my mother, but I became the last address. Story 7, The Last Address. Every delivery ends somewhere, and this one ended with me. After that night, the world pretended nothing had happened. The care facility blamed a gas leak. The police wrote reports full of words like hallucination and trauma. Doctors called it stress-induced psychosis. My mother remembered none of it. She just knew I wouldn't let go of her hand. For weeks, things were quiet. No messages, no orders, no fog. I dared to believe it was over, that I had broken the cycle, that refusing the delivery had destroyed the system. But silence, I learned, is not peace. It's preparation. The dreams returned first, different now. No house, no woman, just doors, endless doors, floating in darkness. All of them were closed, except one. It had no number, no name, just a feeling, heavy, inevitable. When I reached for it, I woke up. My phone buzzed. Final order ready. I didn't scream. I didn't panic. I felt calm, like the last puzzle piece finally clicked into place. The app looked different, simpler, cleaner. No threats, no countdown. Just one line. Drop location. You. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, listening to my breathing, feeling that internal room stretch wider. She wasn't coming for me anymore. She didn't need to. I was already there. I left my apartment before sunrise. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't pack anything. Some journeys don't allow luggage. The fog met me halfway down the street. Not thick, not aggressive, almost respectful. The house didn't appear this time, because it didn't need to. I felt it inside me. Every step forward made it clearer. I wasn't walking toward a place. I was becoming one. I stopped at the edge of town, where the street lights end, where the world stops pretending. That's far enough, I said out loud. My voice echoed back wrong, like it didn't belong to me anymore. She appeared beside me, not from the fog, from my shadow. You always arrive eventually, she said. Her voice was tired now, weaker. It ends here, I said. She smiled sadly. It always does. What are you? I asked. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. She looked at me, truly looked, and the truth finally surfaced. We're mistakes, she said. Wrong addresses in explain worlds. When people disappear without reason, when places exist that shouldn't, someone has to hold them. You trap them, I said. She shook her head. We store them, she replied, so reality doesn't collapse under its own errors. I laughed bitterly. And the deliveries? She met my eyes. That's how the burden moves, she said, one willing carrier at a time. I understood then. The drivers, the house, the cycle. It wasn't evil, it was containment. And now, I asked. She gestured toward me. Now you are stable, she said. You resisted, you chose, you broke a rule. So I replace you, I asked. She nodded. My time is finished. The fog thinned. The night sky cleared. Stars visible again. You'll be alone, she added. No house, no orders, just holding. Who delivers to me? I asked quietly. She smiled. No one, she said. That's the point. Her form began to unravel, like smoke in reverse. You'll feel them, she whispered. The lost ones, the errors, the wrong turns. And if I refuse? I asked. She paused. Then the world cracks. She vanished. The fog rushed into me. Not cold, not painful, heavy, like responsibility settling into bones. I fell to my knees. The doors slammed shut inside me, one by one, locked. Morning came. Birds chirped. Cars passed. Life continued. Weeks passed, then months. I moved away, changed my name, stayed close to quiet places. Sometimes people pass me and feel uneasy. They don't know why. They just feel watched. Sometimes someone disappears nearby, a missing person, a wrong turn, a bad address, and sometimes, late at night, I feel a knock, not on a door, inside my chest. I don't answer. I just hold it. That's my job now. If you're listening to this story and you've ever felt like a place didn't want you there, if an address felt wrong, if you turned back at the last second, you're welcome because someone stayed. The scariest delivery of my life never ended. It just learned how to stay quiet. Welcome to Creepytalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1. The friends who knew too much. They smiled like brothers, but they were waiting for the exact moment to ruin his life. Some friends don't betray you once, they slowly erase you. I never believed the phrase, fake friends are more dangerous than enemies. That belief almost killed me. My name is Ethan Miller, and this is not a story meant to scare you with monsters, ghosts, or demons. This is worse. This is about people you trust, people you laugh with, people who know your secrets, and how they can destroy you from the inside while calling themselves your friends. The perfect friend group. It all started in Chicago, winter of 2018. I was 22, fresh out of college, living in a shared apartment near downtown. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hopeful. I had a decent job at a digital marketing firm, dreams of starting my own business, and what I believed was a solid group of friends. There were 4 of us. Ryan, the leader type, charming, confident, always talking about success. Mark, quiet, sarcastic, good with tech, rarely spoke about his personal life. Jason, the joker, always laughing, always supportive, or so it seemed. And me, the listener, the planner, the guy who believed loyalty mattered. We met during our first year of college. Late-night study sessions turned into parties. Parties turned into road trips. And before we knew it, we were inseparable. Or at least, that's what I thought. The first small red flag. Looking back, the signs were there. But fake friends don't attack you loudly. They whisper. Ryan used to make jokes about my failures. Relax, man, I'm just kidding. Jason would laugh a little too hard when I messed up. Mark always knew things he shouldn't have known. Still, I ignored it. Because when you're surrounded by people, loneliness feels impossible until it suddenly isn't. The secret I never should have shared. One night, after a few drinks, everything changed. We were sitting in our apartment living room. Snow tapped softly against the windows. The room smelled of cheap beer and pizza. Ryan leaned back and said, Ethan, you're the smartest one here. Why don't you start something of your own? I laughed. I've thought about it, but I don't trust people easily. Jason leaned forward. You trust us, right? That question should have scared me. Instead, it made me feel safe. So I told them. I told them about the investment money my uncle had secretly given me. I told them about my startup idea, an online platform I'd been planning for over a year. I told them things I hadn't even told my parents. The room went quiet. Ryan smiled slowly. That's huge, man. I didn't notice how Mark avoided eye contact. I didn't notice how Jason stopped joking. That night, I handed them the blueprint of my future. When friends start watching you. From that moment, things shifted. Ryan started asking questions. Too many. How much money exactly? Who else knows? When are you launching? Jason suddenly wanted to help with everything. Mark began working late on his laptop, always locking his screen when I walked by. I felt uncomfortable, but I told myself I was paranoid. That's how fake friends win. The night everything disappeared, 3 months later, my life collapsed in one night. I came home late from work. The apartment lights were off. Ryan's shoes were gone. Jason's jacket missing. Mark's room locked. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was my laptop. It was open. Files were missing. My business plan, gone. My financial spreadsheets, gone. Emails deleted. Cloud access changed. My chest tightened. I checked my phone. No messages, no calls, just silence. Then my email notification appeared. Welcome to Nexacore Digital. Founder account activated. I stared at the screen. Nexacore Digital was the name of my idea. But I wasn't the founder. The betrayal reveals itself. The next morning I found out the truth. Ryan had registered the company under his name. Mark had copied my entire system. Jason had contacted investors using my connections. They didn't just steal my idea, they erased me from it. When I confronted Ryan, he didn't deny it. He smiled. You should have protected yourself better. Those words haunt me to this day. When fake friends turn into predators, I lost everything within weeks. My job, gone. My savings, drained fighting legal battles. My reputation, destroyed by lies they spread. They told people I was unstable, that I was greedy, that I tried to steal their idea. Friends stopped calling. Family started doubting. And that's when the nightmares began. Not dreams, nightmares. I'd wake up hearing footsteps in the hallway, whispers calling my name, my phone lighting up with messages that vanished when I opened them. Fake friends don't leave when they're done. They watch. The warning I ignored. One night, an unknown number texted me. They're not finished with you. I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. The horror begins. 2 days later, I saw my own face on social media, tied to crimes I never committed. Fake screenshots, fake messages, fake evidence. But the damage was real. And that's when I realized something terrifying. They didn't just want success. They wanted to destroy me completely. Story 2. When betrayal starts watching you. They didn't just steal his future. They turned his own mind into a prison. When fake friends finish using you, they don't walk away. They hunt. The first time I realized something was seriously wrong, I was afraid of my own phone. Every vibration made my heart jump. Every notification felt like another nail in the coffin of my life. My name, Ethan Miller, had become poison. And the worst part? The people destroying me knew exactly how my mind worked, because once, they were my friends. A life that no longer felt real. I stopped going outside, not because I was lazy, not because I was depressed, because people were watching me. At least that's what it felt like. Neighbors I had greeted for years suddenly avoided eye contact. Uber drivers whispered on phone calls after dropping me off. Cashiers paused too long while scanning my card. Maybe it was paranoia, or maybe it wasn't. Everywhere I went, I could feel judgment crawling over my skin. The lies Ryan and the others had spread were working. The internet never forgets. I searched my name online. Worst mistake of my life. Articles, threads, videos. Former employee accused of fraud. Unstable man threatens startup founders. The dark side of Nexacore's former partner. Former partner. I was never listed as a partner. They had rewritten history. And the comments. God, the comments. Lock him up. He looks crazy. Another greedy loser pretending to be a victim. I slammed my laptop shut and vomited into the sink. That's when I realized something terrifying. They didn't just steal my idea. They stole my identity. The first direct message. It happened at 2:13 a.m. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ryan, you should stop fighting. It's not good for your mental health. My blood went cold. I hadn't given him my new number. I typed back. Me. How did you get this number? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then a new message. Ryan, you always overthink, Ethan. That's your weakness. My hands shook. He knew. He knew I doubted myself. He knew anxiety followed me like a shadow, and he was using it. Gaslighting, the invisible weapon. Over the next week, messages came from different numbers, sometimes supportive,